Welcome to The Explainer. You've probably heard the term lean management thrown around in business, right? Well, today, we're going to unpack the real story behind it, and trust me, it has a surprisingly global origin story that you might not expect.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start where it all began, on the factory floors of Toyota in post-war Japan. Then we'll get into the two core ideas that were the foundation for everything. After that, we hit a big surprise, where the name lean actually came from. And we'll wrap up with the 5 key principles that define it today and a final thought on how ideas can travel the world. Okay, let's dive in. Our story kicks off in post-war Japan at the Toyota Motor Corporation, and they were driven by this absolutely unwavering commitment to quality. Just take a look at this timeline for a second. We're talking 1949. Japan is still rebuilding, and Toyota is already adopting advanced stuff like statistical quality control. A few years later, in '65, they win the Deming Prize, which is a huge deal. This wasn't some happy accident, you know? It was this deliberate, almost obsessive quest for quality that really laid the groundwork for everything that came next.
And really, it all boils down to this. Before they ever talked about efficiency or cutting waste, Toyota's entire philosophy was anchored in 2 super simple ideas: customer first and quality first. This wasn't just some slogan they put on a poster, it was deep in their DNA. It drove every single decision they made.
So how did Toyota actually turn that obsession into a workable system? Well, they built the now legendary Toyota Production System, or TPS, and it stands on 2 pretty revolutionary pillars: Jidoka and just-in-time.
Now, these 2 concepts might sound kind of simple, but believe me, they completely change the game in manufacturing. On one hand, you have Jidoka, this idea of giving machines a kind of human touch, and on the other, just-in-time, which was a radical new way of thinking about when and why you make things. Let's break them down.
So this is Jidoka. Sometimes people call it automation. Automation with autonomy. Think about it this way. Instead of having a quality inspector at the end of the production line trying to catch mistakes, you build the inspector right into the machine itself. So if a machine spots a problem, boom, it stops immediately. This gives every single worker the power to be a quality controller, making sure a mistake never gets passed on.
And then we have the second pillar, just-in-time. This one really flipped the whole assembly line model on its head. The old way was a push system. Factories would just make thousands and thousands of parts and push them down the line, which created these huge, wasteful piles of inventory. Toyota came up with a pull system. Nothing gets made until the next station, or even the final customer, sends a signal that they need it. It's really the difference between stocking a giant buffet and a chef cooking your meal fresh, just for you.
Okay, so Toyota develops this incredibly powerful system entirely in-house, which leads to a really interesting question.
Right? You'd think the name would be Japanese, but this is where the story takes a fascinating turn.
That's right. The name we all use to describe this groundbreaking Japanese philosophy, lean, was actually coined in America.
So the term first pops up in 1988 in an article by a researcher named John Krafcik. He was studying the car industry at MIT, and he needed a word to describe why Toyota's system was so much more efficient than everyone else's. He chose the word lean because it used less of everything: less human effort, less factory space, less capital, less time to develop products. And, well, the name stuck.
And Krafcik wasn't the only one. As you can see here, a lot of the key terms we link with this system, like value stream mapping or A3 problem solving, were actually coined or at least popularized by Western researchers. You could almost think of them as translators. They observed what was happening at Toyota and created a clear, simple vocabulary to teach it to the rest of the world.
So what did these researchers actually distill from Toyota's system? Well, they broke the whole philosophy down into 5 guiding principles. And this became a practical roadmap that basically any organization could follow.
In their game-changing book, researchers Womack and Jones didn't just help popularize the name. They managed to break down this entire complex philosophy into 5 clear, understandable steps. This made it accessible to businesses way beyond just making cars.
And here they are, the 5 principles, all working together in a cycle. It all starts with number 1. You have to specify value, but only from the customer's point of view. Next, you identify the value stream, every single step it takes to deliver that value, and you ruthlessly cut out the waste. 3. You create flow, so the work moves smoothly without any stops. 4. You create a pull system, just like we talked about with Toyota. And finally, number 5, you pursue perfection, because you have to recognize that this is a never-ending journey of getting better.
So, what's the big takeaway here? The story of Lean is just this incredible example of how an idea can be born on one continent and then get translated, adapted, and adopted by another, completely transforming industries along the way.
Because at its heart, it doesn't matter if you call it TPS or Lean. The philosophy is still rooted in these really fundamental, people-focused ideas that were born at Toyota. It's about everyone, everywhere, always looking for a better way to do things.
So this journey from a factory in Japan to a global business philosophy leaves us with a pretty powerful question to think about. When an idea like this gets translated across cultures, what do we gain from that? And is it possible that something important gets lost? Sure, the name changed, but those core principles of focusing on the customer and always improving are still there. It kind of makes you wonder what other amazing ideas are out there, just waiting to be translated.